Hello and welcome to Learning with Mike. Today you're going to have a huge treat because we are going to have a show with the one and only Magic Mike. Whoa. It's not that type of show. Today we're actually going to be explaining the AMC and Gamestop Shortsqueeze play using Magic and why I believe that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity and the biggest transfer of wealth in history. So let's get started. Imagine that this deck of cards represents all of the stocks in the stock market. You have Facebook, Tesla, Amazon, they're all in here. However, out of all these stocks, two of them rise to the top. Watch carefully, okay? As two of them rise to the top. That is AMC and GameStop. Over the past 9 months, like hedge funds and companies have told us to forget about AMC, right? They don't want us to believe in the company. They are telling you that they're gonna fall back down to $2, that they're not worth anything. So they're gonna push the stock all the way back down. However, when you think about it, all these retail investors and everybody that's supporting the apes always make it come right back to the top. But to truly understand this AMC short squeeze play, we have to go back to 2019. So let's go back in time. Use your TVA tempad, hop on your DeLorean, use the time stone, whatever method you want to go back in time. But let's go all the way back to 2019. Oh, shoot. I think I went back a little bit too far and I've erased all my cards. Hold on. I gotta go a little bit forward. Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay, we're back to normal. So what happened in 2019? In 2019, both AMC and GameStop were facing their own unique challenges. So for example, GameStop was having issues with their old business model of selling used games because people weren't really selling games because they were buying digital downloads as well as through e-commerce. And so their stock went from $60 all-time high to about $15 range. Likewise, for AMC, they were facing their own unique challenges. For example, there was a lot more competition from streaming platforms such as Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime, now Disney Plus, HBO Max, and a billion more other ones that are out there right now. So all these affected their stock, and they also went from an all-time high of about $30 to around the $15 range as well. To explain what happened to the stock from $60 and $30 dropping all the way down to $15, we need to understand what shorting is. And shorting essentially is bet against the stock that the price will go down. In practice, what you need to do is borrow a share. So let's use these red cards to represent an actual share of the stock. So a hedge fund needs to borrow it, and essentially what they will do is convert it into this black card here that represents essentially a shorted share. So how do shorts actually make money? Well, they borrow a share from someone in the market, then they sell it immediately, and then they will hope that the price goes down. Once the price goes down, they buy the share back, and then they return that share to the original lender. That difference is the money that they made. So in 2019, what happened was that the COVID-19 pandemic hit in full force. Essentially, the whole world shut down and people were scared. Governments were requiring people to stay at home and not go out. This pretty much affected both GameStop and AMC, which had brick and mortar stores. And then what happened exactly was that hedge funds got really greedy and they shorted the stock even more. So let's take a look at the GameStop just as an example. So imagine that this red deck of cards represents the float, or essentially all of the tradable shares of a stock. Right now we're talking about GameStop. So all these are all the shares that can be traded for GameStop. And then what ended up happening is they shorted 140% of the float, or 142% of the float. So imagine all of these black cards are the shorts that are in the market. So now this pile right here is what's supposed to be in the market. And now we're gonna go shuffle. Essentially, they sell all of these back into the market, and now this is what the market is seeing as all the shares that are currently traded out there. So now imagine all the red shares are supposed to be what's tradable, and all these black ones are people shorting. So they shorted so much that it was over 100% of the tradable shares. So why did they want to short so much that it was over 140%? Well, there is actually a loophole that states that a short position doesn't have to repay the share back ever if the company itself goes bankrupt. So imagine that this chip is the company, right? AMC or GameStop. And during the pandemic, these hedge funds really wanted to crush them. Essentially, they wanted to take them, crush them, and make them disappear. Why? Because if they were bankrupt, then they wouldn't have to repay all those shares. So in numbers, let's go back to this GameStop example, okay? I think the GameStop flow was around like 53 million shares, and 142% was like 72 million. So 72 million times around the $15 mark that they shorted, that's equals to a $1 billion bet, okay? A $1 billion bet that the stock would fail. Once retail investors realized that the float had been shorted so much, that there was so many shares, that if we just bought and hold, then the stock would have to go up, because all these shares, all these black cards need to be returned. So that's when AMC and GameStop and a lot of the meme stocks started to rally. That's when Wall Street Bets started figuring it out and pushing the stock, where the media started talking about it, and the stocks rose all the way to $300 for GameStop and about, or $400, and for AMC it was about $20. So this is when Robinhood decided to step in, and they essentially started to limit the amount of shares that could be bought. So that started slowing down the momentum of the stocks. Then at some point they actually blocked the entire buy button, where people were not allowed to buy shares anymore. Like, that was huge, like, corruption right there. Why would you only allow to block the buy button and not the sell button? So obviously people started selling because they were scared, right? They were only allowed to sell, not about to buy anymore. That messed with supply and demand. So it wasn't a fair market. Later on, we found out that Vlad actually not only lied to the public on national TV, he also was doing it to save his own ass. So what happened is he made a deal with the regulatory body that essentially said that they needed about $3 billion worth of money, but they didn't have it. So by blocking the buy button, essentially they were able to reduce the amount that they needed to do to about 700 million. And there's actually a call that I can link to if you're interested to hear that entire talk of how he explains what he did to make that deal. Now that we've talked about shorts, you might have heard this term going around the internet about naked shorting. So what is naked shorting? Well, a naked short essentially is when a hedge fund creates a share out of thin air. This practice is illegal because they're not borrowing a stock anymore. They're just creating a share and then selling it to you in the market. This should be regulated. It is illegal, but I'm sure that this is still happening until there's more regulation, until they're actually checking the books of these market makers and hedge funds, and they can get away with it. So once the stock has been shorted so much, how can a hedge fund ensure that the price goes down so that they could buy it at a lower price? Well, one of the ways they do it is by manipulating the media. With the media, they essentially pay the media or have people write bad articles about the stock, or if they were in a long position, they'll write good articles about the stock. But in the short case, they'll write bad information about the stocks to essentially create FUD, or essentially fear, uncertainty, and doubt. By creating fear, uncertainty, and doubt, it psychologically plays with retail investors' minds, and they're like, oh no, the stock is not worth it, so I need to sell my shares before it tanks to nothing. So they create that fear so that you sell your shares. Another way that they use to attack a stock is called a short ladder attack, where they use high frequency trading to pretty much put a lot of sell orders to make the price go down. So essentially, you have two hedge funds here represented by the jokers because they're the fools. And what they will do is they will attack the stocks. So they'll put a sell order, rapidly sell, sell, sell. And this happens in the blink of an eye because they're using high frequency trading computers. So all of a sudden you see this huge sell order wave come down, and it's meant to scare people, just like the fear, uncertainty, and doubt from the media. So people have admitted that they've used $5-10 million to attack a stock this way, to drive the price down, drive that perception, and make sure that a lot of retail investors get scared. And you got to remember that they're combining all these tactics. They're using the media simultaneously with this short ladder attack, right? To create that perception that the stock is going to nothing and that you need to sell. Another way that they can affect the stock is through dark pools. And dark pools essentially are a private exchange where you could buy or sell stocks in large quantities so that you don't affect the price too much, or that's the role they're supposed to play. However, because they're not regulated very well, there's a lot of room for manipulation and for shenanigans to happen in here. Let me give you an example. Let's use this deck of cards as the dark pool, okay? And what we're gonna do is we're going to count 10 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we're gonna put them into the dark pool. These 10 cards are gonna go here into the dark pool. Then we're gonna count 10 cards to represent the shares that we have in the market, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, okay? So these 10 shares here represent the market, and these 10 shares in the dark pool are the ones in the dark pool. So how do they actually manage to affect the market? Well, hedge funds would route the buy orders from the real market into the dark pool and process all the sell orders in the real exchange. This will drive the price down. So let's do it. So they'll take a buy order, put it in here, and they'll process a sell order here, right? And look at what happens, right? Now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shares left. So 9 shares are left, 1 went into the dark pool. And they'll do it again, right? They'll take another share here from the real exchange, transfer it to the dark pool, and then they'll process all the sells here. That again, because there is no buys here, only selling, price drops again. So now what happens, right? So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. See how now we have 1 less? And they'll do it one last time again, right? So they'll transfer the buy here to the sell, and then, the buy into the dark pool, right? And then they'll continue selling here, driving the price further down. And now what do you have left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards. Yeah, exactly. 7 cards are left in the real market. And then what is left in the dark pool? So, well, they essentially transferred, we're gonna count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 3 of those shares in the example were transferred into the dark pool from the real market. And that is how they managed to drive the price down sometimes as well. So now you must be thinking, with all this manipulation, with all these tactics that they can do to create FUD, to scare us to sell our stock, so why should we invest in AMC and GameStop? Well, because of the concept of the MOASS, or the mother of all short squeezes. So the concept essentially is that, remember all those shorted shares that are in the market? They haven't covered those yet. They claim that they've covered a lot of these positions. So if you do some DD and you research, or due diligence, DD stands for due diligence, and you can find that all these market makers or hedge funds essentially can misreport their shares, the shorted shares, and essentially they're only getting fined on the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So of course they're gonna lie about it. If they have $1 billion to lose, they will lie about it, especially if it doesn't hurt them. So that's why regulations need to change, and the SEC needs to look into these practices and really change the rules so that they don't. And I'm happy to say that that is actually starting to happen. There has been a lot of awareness brought, and now things and rules are changing. So if it changes in the future, this type of play won't ever exist. Also, the fact that they got so overconfident and they shorted over 140% of the float, they really believed that it was going to crash and go bankrupt, but it didn't. So now they're really worried. So how can we make money during the MOASS, right? For the mother of all short squeezes to happen? Well, you need to buy and hodl shares, right? Real shares, shorted shares, whatever they sell you, you keep them, because in your book, they will be real shares, whether it's a shorted share from their side or a real share, they are actual shares. By the way, I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. This is for entertainment and learning purposes only. So why buying and holding affects them, and how this is the winning strategy? Well, if they try to scare you and you're not selling, price will remain stable at a normal price. And in fact, we've actually seen this happen. Let's take GameStop, because it's happened more times with GameStop, right? The price went to $400 and it went down all the way to like $40, $50 after Robinhood's shenanigans. Then it went again all the way to $300, and the next time it dropped only to like that $80, $90 range. Then the third time it hit $300, it dropped only to that $150, $140 range. And what is happening? So people are actually holding their stocks, and the more they're attacking, the deeper hole they're digging themselves, right? So the more they short the shares, the more they try to manipulate. They're spending money to essentially affect the stock that people aren't selling. One other thing that you have to realize is when you short a share, you borrow that share, there's actually interest that you have to pay. So there's a fee that you're paying. So as long as we're holding, it's free for us to hold the stock. But for them, every day that they are holding this, they're bleeding money. So they can try to drag it on, but every day they're paying millions of dollars for the amounts of shares that they've shorted, right? So millions of dollars they're paying each day to try to that they don't cover their shorts. So how will the MOASS work essentially? As long as we're holding, they will have to at some point return these shares, right? So the way it works is, as long as we're holding the shares, the supply of shares in the market is running out. And as long as there is no supply and there is a lot of demand, if you go back to those numbers, over 140% of the float, all those shorted shares need shares to be covered. But since you can't find it, the law of supply and demand dictates that you can essentially dictate the price. So if we look here into our box, one share of AMC or GameStop can essentially be whatever price you want. Okay, so if you buy and hold your shares, at some point when they need to start covering, you can essentially dictate the price that you want to sell it at. So how do we get to this infinity price? Well, as long as we're buying and holding and nobody is selling, right? We cancel the sell button here. Nobody sells, then price essentially will go up. Because nobody's selling, supply and demand shows that there's scarcity in the shares available that people want to sell. So that means that one share gets more expensive, price goes up, right? And as price goes up, then smaller shorts will start to get scared, or possibly they'll get margin called. So once that happens, a lot of shares start getting bought and it gets snowballs. The effect starts snowballing. So more and more shares are getting bought. But as long as people are still not selling, then all this competition is trying to buy up all these shares. And this is how it can skyrocket up. And this is how exactly we went from $50 all the way to $400 for GameStop, and AMC went from $12 all the way to $70, right? It squeezes a lot of these shorts positions. But why is this called the mother of all short squeezes? Because the big guys, the guys that shorted 140%, the guys that got overconfident from the start of the pandemic, thinking that they were gonna crush them, that they went all in and doubled down and keep shorting and shorting and shorting, they haven't covered. And as long as they haven't covered, while you have any shares and you just hold them, pretty much you could dictate what price you want to sell them at. So I've heard the floor is 500,000, 600,000. I'm Asian. I like the number 8. So why not 888,000 per share? Whatever is a life-changing amount for you, think of that and then double it, triple it. That's what you could ask for. If everybody holds their shares and supply runs out, they will have to buy it at whatever price we dictate. So this is essentially why. The factors were, they shorted companies that they truly believed were struggling. They got overconfident during the pandemic and shorted it even more. They shorted it carelessly and they thought they could get away because they were going to go bankrupt. However, retail investors were smart. They found out about this and then they started buying and holding. This really scared them. So they started doing a whole bunch of tactics to try to get us to sell our shares back to them. So they try to manipulate the media. They do short attacks. They do short ladder attacks. They short the stock. They will do route stuff through dark pools. All of the things that we talked about earlier are strategies designed for you to sell your shares, okay? Everything they do is to try to sell your shares. Do you believe that if they weren't in trouble, they would be trying to convince you so hard that these stocks are not worth it. At some point I read about 20-30 articles a day that were coming out from different news outlets. The worst one was, I think, the Monthly Fool. They were having like 5-6 articles saying, oh, the meme stocks are done, AMC is going to fail, GameStop is worthless. All these things, they kept attacking the stocks. Why are they creating so much FUD? Because they know that if we actually hold, we can dictate the price, and they are so scared of that. So this is actually the first time that I've created a magic routine, so please go easy on me. I'm actually very passionate about the AMC and GameStop squeeze play because I do believe it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The hedge funds got really careless shorting it so much, and I do believe that there will be the biggest transfer of wealth from the rich to everyone else. And I know a lot of people have already made a lot of money. So if you like this type of content, or you just enjoy the show, or you want to find out more of how to build wealth from the ground up, please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified for all the episodes that I have. And thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode.